Hello, everybody. I'm Xavier, and I'm going to share with you um, my experience traveling to South Africa. And please feel free to interrupt me at any time during the presentation. I do want to have time at the end for lots of questions and what you're thinking about doing and some of the issues you face perhaps in your travel planning. So let's begin. So South Africa, getting there. So today I'm going to talk about why we went, how we planned our trip, the itinerary that we developed. Then I'll do a quick little slideshow and then we can take questions. If you have any questions after the presentation's over and after the Zoom session's over, my email is here below. It's matthewleexavier@gmail.com. Feel free to shoot me an email if you have questions or if you want to talk on the phone. I'm happy to do any of that. Okay, so why we went. My wife and I love to travel. We like to go to new places. And but the main driver for choosing South Africa is our daughter was a student at UC San Diego, and she went on an exchange program with the University of Cape Town. So my wife and I thought, well, heck, why don't we just go visit her at the end of her semester and pick her up and travel around the country? And so that was the driving force behind the trip. But we also, when we travel, we like to, like I said, go to new places. My wife loves photography. She took over 3,000 photos, and she keeps a very large archive of our pictures, and she organizes them after the trips. And I'll show you what she does as a result of that. We also wanted to learn more about the culture of South Africa because it is diverse, it's multicultural, and also the natural world, the natural aspect of South Africa because it's quite a diverse country, and we'll talk about some of the things that we did near the end of our trip that may excite you. So how we planned our trip, the first thing we do, like you're doing now, is talking to other people. You know, where did you go? What did you see? How much was it? How much time do I need? So really understanding some of the boundaries and constraints and what have you on an overall trip. Um, we read a couple books. One was by Lonely Planet. I'll show you the cover of it. And of course, reading the books really gives you more detail that you might not necessarily get by talking to someone, including the costs and things like do's and don'ts when you're in certain places in South Africa. Um, you want to look at so whenever we go to a new country, we look at the State Department website, and it's very helpful. And I'm going to pull up the State Department website for South Africa. So what you can do in Google is just type in South Africa travel, and the first link it usually gives you is the State Department of the United States, and they'll give you information on that country. So here I typed in South Africa travel, and this is what I got. And there's a couple things that this website tells you. The first thing is it safe to travel there? So for example, here there's a travel advisory. It's a level 2. The safest level, if you look here, is level 1, where you can exercise normal precautions and things are relatively safe. Now, when my wife and I flew there, the State Department was giving a 1, exercise normal caution, but at the time, there was huge unrest with university students throughout the entire country because the government, which was having issues with finances, wanted to raise their tuition. And there was a huge set of protests, rallies, riots, what have you. And of course, my daughter was embroiled in some of these incidences, and I'll share those with you as we go through the presentation. So anyway, so this tells you, again, what the safety level is. The highest one is 4, which of course means don't go there unless you absolutely have to. Do not travel to that country. If you scroll further down, you'll see if there's a visa that's needed, and there is no tourist visa needed if you're going to go to South Africa for 90 days or less. It gives you information on vaccines, so on and so forth. So we did not have to do any vaccines when we traveled there, but we did take malaria pills with us. And I think we started taking them maybe a day or two before we took our flight, and then throughout our whole trip there. Okay. Again, check with your medical provider. With Kaiser, we have Kaiser. Kaiser actually has a travel desk, and you can call them up and say, hey, I'm going to South Africa. What do I need to worry about? What kind of medicines do I need to take with you? And they'll give you a whole list of things, and then you can go to the pharmacy and pick those up. And it could be anything from malaria pills to other types of medicines for things that might cause you pain or discomfort. Any questions on the State Department website? None? Okay. Switch back to this. So as you develop your plan, you'll want to think how many days that you want to spend in that country, and that could be driven by your schedule, by your budget, what have you. Um, Also, music and podcasts. You can. We did a driving tour for a section of this trip, and so I like to listen to historical podcasts about the country I'm going to. You can find those. You can search those on Google, and there's usually an app that you can install on your phone, and you can listen to history as you drive. Also, we choose music that represents the country we're going to, and I'll have some stories about that later too. And then, of course, with South Africa, the seasons are the opposite. So our summer is their winter, and vice versa. So we visited at the end of, or actually in mid-November, which was just their springtime. Their springtime was just about to emerge. Okay, so some of the books that we read, again, Fedora's Travel on African Safaris. At near the end of the trip, we spent 4 days in Kruger National Park. It is this incredible natural reserve full of every type of animal that lives in Africa that you can think of. And so you want to, if that's something that interests you, Kruger is very inexpensive. It's inexpensive to stay there. You can stay at the cheapest accommodations, from a round hut to luxury accommodations. And these are basically camps that are surrounded by 10-foot walls with barbed wire to keep all the wild animals out. So it's safe once you're inside the camp. And the actual safaris themselves, there's quite a few to choose from, and they're very inexpensive. You know, you read about these safaris in Kenya where you pay hundreds of dollars. We paid just under $50 per person for 3-hour safaris. So I thought that was a great deal. Another book, if you plan to go to South Africa, Trevor Noah wrote a book about his life called Born a Crime. His father was white and his mother was African. And during the time of apartheid, that was essentially illegal, hence the name of the book. But it's an incredible book, lots of great stories, lots of humor. And it's amazing to read the story of his life. And then here's the Lonely Planet book, South Africa, Lesotho, and Swaziland. This was a great resource for us as we planned our trip. Now, once you're in, if you do decide to, okay, so here's some of the music CDs. We bought this one when we were in Cape Town. There was an a cappella group that was playing. And as we drove through the garden route, which takes you from Cape Town all the way to the very southern tip of the country, we played this over and over again because it was just so beautiful. Graceland, of course, which has South African influences. And another one we played is by an artist called Dizu Platiges. Dizu was actually, he's still a professor at the University of Cape Town. He's the foremost expert in the world on African stringed instruments. And he's an international world-renowned artist who records and travels throughout the world. And we'll have a story about him later. Now, if you do go to Kruger, one thing you'll want to pick up is this map book. I think it was about $5. So it's very inexpensive, but worth it. And in it, it has every kind of creature you can possibly run into when you're in Kruger National Park. There's incredible maps, detailed maps, and places that tell you, well, these are good for hippos, or if you want to see lions, go to this spot. In Kruger, you can, like I said, you can do safaris and have guides take you through on huge trucks. Excuse me. Or you can do a self-driving safari. So there's roads throughout the entire park. You can take your car out and drive to your heart's content wherever you want to go. When you see animals, you can stop and look. One of the big rules, though, is you stay in your car because there's things out there that want to eat you or bite you with the venomous. Anyway, so great resource there. If you're a birder, if you love birds like I do, this is just 2 pages of the book, but there's, I can't remember how many species. It's in the hundreds. There's hundreds of species of birds in Kruger, and it was really hard keeping track of all of them because there's so many, especially when you go out on a morning safari. We got in the truck at 5 o'clock in the morning. We were out of the camp. And in the camp, of course, they have these huge gates that open up, and then the truck goes out, and then the gates close. So we were out by 5:30, and it felt like we went in for the first one we did. It was like the Garden of Eden. There were animals everywhere, and there were so many birds of different species. Some of them were flying through our truck, and it was quite an experience. Okay, any questions so far? None? Okay. So when we went to Cape Town, we flew British Airlines, and at the time we paid $1,000 round trip per person, which in my book, when you consider the distance you travel, it was quite a deal. So we basically flew San Diego to London, and then we got on the 747 and went London to Cape Town. The London Cape Town, I think, was 18 hours. It was doable because we were well prepared. We had our iPads, we had our phones, we had music and books, plenty to do on the plane, plenty of snacks. And then on the return, when we left Kruger, we went to Johannesburg for a couple days, and then we flew out of Johannesburg back to London, back to San Diego. So if you go to the British Airways website, let's see, this website's not working very well. What's going on? There we go. So here's British Airways. So if you checked for November, we could do this. And it's really slow right now. Sorry, internet's a little slow in my house. So one way, so if you wanted to travel, say, Sunday, the 10th of November, and if you wanted to go British Airways, there's a flight here, $721, that's one way. And when you check the return, it's the same. So it's $1,400 to travel all the way to Cape Town if you did that back and forth. And I think that's a great travel deal. So British Airways is a great airline. Love traveling with them. And by the way, can you see?
Janet put in the chat as well that she did the same flight last year, and it was 11 hours Cape Town to London.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you very much for, yeah. that we did this trip in 2015, so I don't remember all the details exactly. So thank you for clarifying that. Um, these are pictures from one of the on the as we drove from Cape Town to Port Elizabeth. There was a place called Monkey Land, and it's basically a huge nature park with all sorts of animals. And this was the monkey section. And here we found this lemur doing yoga and meditation in the forest. So I had to take that picture. It's pretty funny. Okay. So we talked about check the State Department. We talked about talking to your travel desk if you have one, or your medical provider. Right now, the dollar is strong not only in Europe, but also in South Africa. One US dollar gets you 18 South African rand. And if you do it the other way, one South African rand is equal to about 6 cents American. Okay, questions on that? Okay. Let's go to the itinerary. Oh, wait, yeah, so itinerary. So the quick summary on our itinerary, we did 3 weeks. We spent a couple days in Cape Town to check out all the sites and hang out with my daughter. Then we drove the garden route, which is absolutely stunning. If you like to do traveling on your own rather in groups, traveling by car is probably one of my favorites, and I highly recommend it. Like I said, then we flew to Kruger from Port Elizabeth, spent 4 days there. Then we flew from there to Johannesburg, spent a couple days there, and then back to San Diego. Okay. So let's look at the maps first before I show you the itinerary. So my wife creates, she's the planner in the family. So she creates not only an itinerary in Excel, but she'll take Google Maps and she'll show the route. So this is the route we took from Cape Town, and then the major towns that we hit to visit. And from Cape Town all the way to Port Elizabeth is an 11-hour drive. And I think we did, I can't remember exactly, but maybe 3 or 4 hour drives per day, so that we would have plenty of time in the afternoon to tour around and trek museums or other sites that we wanted to see. So we flew from Port Elizabeth to Kruger Park, which is in the very northeastern part of the country. Now, Kruger National Park is gigantic. It's the same size as Israel. It's incredibly large. It would take you a couple of weeks to see the whole park if you wanted to. Again, we stuck in one major area, and we got to see a lot. So that's what I would recommend, is going to one spot, having a place to stay each night in the same camp, and then just going in different directions each day to check out the sites and the animals. So this is just a quick map. So we flew from Port Elizabeth to Nelspruit Airport, and then we got to rent a car and we drove. And this was basically the route we took. We went to this is where we stayed for most of the time, was Skukuza camp. And as we made our way back to finish this leg of the trip, we made a big loop and came back and flew from Nelspruit to Johannesburg. Okay, so let me just show you how we plan this in terms of the itinerary. And see if I can get all this in one. This is probably more detailed than you want. If you want a copy of this, you can email it to me and I'll send it to you if you wanted to use some of it. But when we plan each day, my wife will think about, well, how much, when are we going to get up? When are we going to eat breakfast? What are we going to see that day? And then she'll figure out the sites that we'll see and then how much time that we'll spend in each area. And of course, for my wife, the sites are important, but for her, it's really the photos at the sites that she's interested in. So some of the things in Cape Town, that I highly recommend are Table Mountain, and I'll show you some pictures of that later. Um, Second day, we went to Simonstown, Cock Bay. We went to Boulders Beach. Boulders Beach, has anybody been to the zoo, San Diego Zoo, and seen the African penguins there? If you have, you can actually go to Boulders Bay and go to the beach, and they're right there. The penguins are not afraid of humans. You can sit right next to them and observe them, and they'll just look at you and turn their head and ignore you. But an incredibly beautiful spot. Um, we went to Robben Island. If you don't know of Robben Island, that's where Nelson Mandela was jailed for decades before he was released. And we got a tour of the prison that he was kept in, his prison cell, and we met some of his former mates who were in prison with him, and that was very emotional. Um, anyway, lots to do in Cape Town. You could spend a week, week and a half there and not see everything. So much to do. Okay. And then from there,
One question,
yes,
one question in the chat, Matt. Did you drive on your own or did you have a driver?
yeah, we rented a car on our own and did all the driving ourselves. Now I think you can hire drivers if you don't want to drive. You can do that. Um, some of the folks one person I talked to that had done South Africa recommended that we do that because when she did it, she felt safer that way. But since we were, when we got the car and went to on the garden route, um, we felt safe. We were pretty savvy travelers. So yeah, so the garden route, it's just incredibly beautiful, and there's beautiful spots and towns that you could stop in. For example, Mosul Bay. Mosul Bay is where Bartholomew Diaz, the Portuguese explorer, when he rounded the Cape of Good Hope, he stopped in this place, and of course now the town has a big museum dedicated to him, and they had Portuguese shipbuilders build a replica of his. Well, I'm not going to call it a ship. It's more like a boat when you see a picture of it. It was essentially a boat with lateen sails, triangular sails, that he sailed from Lisbon all the way to the tip of South Africa. And when you see the size of the ship, you're thinking, how did they even do it? It's just amazing. So yeah, so that's a good stop as well. Oh, I forgot to mention in Cape Town, it's an easy drive to the Cape of Good Hope. There's a lighthouse there. It's a huge natural park, and it's inhabited by baboons. And if you want to be entertained, watch the baboons, keep your distance and keep your car locked. But I tell you, we ended up following them because they were so entertaining to watch their behaviors and the things they did. It was pretty fascinating. Okay, so that's the itinerary. That's what we do when we plan. You probably all do the same thing, I would imagine. And yeah, so that's the itinerary.
One
So,
more question in the chat
Yeah.
about the driving was, what direction app did you use? Was it Google Maps or just something different that was more useful there?
What did we use? We probably had a Garmin. Oh, we had a Garmin. Yeah. Because I think in 2015, I don't think Google Maps you could use Google Maps now. There's cell service everywhere there. But we used a Garmin, and we purchased you can buy, this is probably obsolete now, but you could buy chips for each country that had maps for each country. And it was like, I think $25 for the South African chip, and you would put it in the Garmin and it would give you everything. We never had any problem. We never got lost. It's the signage on the roads. The roads are modern. The signage is modern. It's very easy to travel by car.
so is it pretty simple to rent a car there? Is it expensive?
Yes. No, it's not expensive at all. So South Africa is very inexpensive and incredibly inexpensive.
Okay.
And
They drive on the left-hand side of the road?
oh my God, it's been so long. I don't remember driving.
Yes,
They did?
yes,
Okay.
yep.
All right. So I've driven in other countries on the left-hand side of the road, and for me, I got used to it within a day. It wasn't that difficult. In South Africa, you can get an automatic. I was used to driving on the other side of the road with a shift, with a gear manual, and that was really difficult to do. But with an automatic, it's a piece of cake. Yeah, you learn pretty quickly.
So you don't have to rent a Jeep or anything like that, a regular vehicle, cars, okay?
Regular cars, okay. Yeah, you don't need a Jeep. Like I
Okay.
said, nearly all the roads are well maintained, modern, asphalt. You know, the roads are well engineered. The garden route, you know, you don't have. It feels like sometimes you're in America when you're on the road. I never felt like I was, except for the scenery, in a different country. So very easy. The signs are in English. So
All right, thank you.
welcome.
Question from Sherry. Did you see any whales?
Yes, we did. So when we were in, it was in so near Plettenberg Bay or Jeffrey Bay. There's Jeffreys Bay. Jeffreys Bay is a huge surfing site where they have competitions every year. Lots of great white sharks there, apparently. We didn't see any of those, but we saw the southern right whale. And I'm not sure if you know what that looks like, but it's a baleen whale. It's probably 50 to 60 feet long. It's similar in many ways to a gray whale. Now, we do have, there have been right whales sighted in the Bay Area. I don't know if you read about that, but the northern right whale, which is much rarer than the southern, has been spotted in California for the first time in a long time. Yeah, so whales, lots of cool whales. Any other questions on what we saw or how we drove?
Can I just add a comment?
Yeah.
Cape Town is my favorite city in the world.
Yes.
If you're planning Table Mountain, be flexible because the weather can be prohibitive. So don't tie yourself into, we can only do Table Mountain this morning, because if it's foggy, those cable cars not going up.
Right.
And the other thing don't miss is Kirstenboss Gardens.
Yes.
Those
Oh, yeah.
spectacular gardens.
I love those gardens. That was just amazing. And you have these incredible walking bridges. Yeah, thank you, Jeanette, for saying that. That's a beautiful spot. Okay. So some of the highlights. So like I said, my daughter, she took 3 classes there. One of her professors, she took a music class, because when you travel abroad, you don't want to take engineering or biochem, right? You want to take the easier classes so you can immerse yourself in the culture and learn about learn about other people that live there, and focus on other things than just your academic work. And so one of her professors was Dizu, and like I said, he's a professor and a world-renowned musician. So he invited us to his house, and it was amazing. First, he gave us a walking tour of Langa. So Langa is just outside of Cape Town. It's a quote township, very impoverished area. But what we saw was a mix of poverty, but also development. So the government was at that point in 2015 starting to spend money on decent housing for people. And so there was a section of the town that was being built up. And I mean, we went from seeing one of Dizu's bandmates living literally in a shack to nice 1-2 bedroom homes that were being built. And so that was really positive. And Dizu, of course, was a very well-respected everyone knew him in the town, and very well respected. Of course, he had the biggest house in the town. He actually had a 2-story house, the only 2-story large house in the whole township. So it was quite an eye-opening experience. He helped raise money to get a community center built, and he showed us that. He showed us all these artists that he was working with, and of course, we bought some things from them. And then after the walking tour, we went to his house, and guess what? We played drums and we had the best time. It was so much fun. So if you have a chance to visit a township, hire a guide and just do it. It's very eye-opening. So touring the local markets, Jeanette, did you go to the old biscuit mill in Cape Town? So
We didn't go to that one. We went to the one down on the waterfront, near the aquarium. I can't remember which one it was, but the markets are amazing.
Yeah, they are. So this is literally an old factory that used to make biscuits, and it closed down years ago, and so they repurposed it, and now it's a huge. It's like a shopping mall with local vendors, but without the walls between the vendors. It's like an open market, but it's inside. So it's you're in the shade. It's cool, and lots of different foods to discover. Any kind of sausage that you want to try. So in South Africa, if an antelope is killed on the road, they don't dispose of the body, they make sausages out of it. So, you know, if you wanted a kudu sausage, if you wanted to see what it tastes like, I know that sounds disgusting probably for some of you, but for those that would want to try it, you have that opportunity. So lots to experience in these types of markets where you have just local artisans, local cooks running their own little business. It's quite fun. Another highlight, and I've already mentioned this, the baboons at Cape Hope, Cape of Good Hope. We literally saw a baboon attack a truck, and he wanted to get in back of the truck and he couldn't because there was a cover over it. He was trying to open it and he got frustrated. So he went to the driver's side mirror and ripped it off the car. So we were kind of scared, but we kept our distance. But they're very, very entertaining to watch, other than their vandalism. And of course, here's a picture of my wife with an African penguin. And as you can see, they're very docile and not afraid of people. And of course, driving the garden route. So the Cape of Good Hope is the most southwest point in Africa, but there's also the southernmost tip of Africa, and that's called Aguilas, which is Portuguese for needles. And so we drove there and checked this area out. It was pretty neat. We didn't see any whales here. It was very windy that day, so we spent maybe 20 minutes at this spot before we went on, but absolutely gorgeous. So on our way to Port Elizabeth, we stopped at this reserve called Addo Elephant Park, and I highly recommend it. It had lots of different species of animals, and of course, most importantly, elephant, which it was created to help preserve and save them. This particular, how should I say it, branch of African elephant, most of the females do not have tusks. And so because of that, they passed on those genes to their offspring. And this one here has tusks, but it was very rare to see that. And the reason why it didn't have tusks is because this certain population over decades was endangered, and those with tusks were hunted, and those that didn't were not. So those kept breeding, and that's why you essentially have this situation where there's a lack of tusk in the gene pool. This is another.
Matt, would you say there's a specific time that's best to visit if you want to see certain things?
Always in the morning. Absolutely, the morning is the best to see animals, any type of animals. Usually by the afternoon, they're finished eating and they're not as mobile. Now that's not true for all animals, but that's been my experience. Again, Kruger National Park, we had some absolutely amazing experiences here with animals, and we saw lots of rhinos, lions. We saw all the big five, which was great, and took lots of pictures. One safari we went out in the late afternoon, and a huge thunder lightning storm hit. And it was the most incredible lightning I've ever seen. It was all throughout the horizon of the park. It kind of rained, it was windy on us, but we had a cover on the truck. We were fine. But it went from being about 85 degrees to 60 degrees in a matter of minutes. It was just an amazing experience, but lots to see in Kruger again. Okay. So after Kruger, like I said, we went to Johannesburg for a couple days. We went to the Apartheid Museum, which was very eye-opening. When you buy your ticket, the ticket says, you know, whites only line or mixed race line. And so you had to go in based on the ticket that you had. So right away, they give you the experience of, you know, this is how they kept people apart. And it was very emotional. They had a great exhibit on Mandela. And of course, all of the protests that were held in America when the college student movement really pressed hard on the US government to sanction South Africa. And historically, of course, that happened. And that was one of the reasons why I think apartheid ended, was because the country was financially impacted and the government decided to release Mandela. One of the highlights, though, in the Johannesburg area, it was the Cradle of Mankind Museum. And here you get hard hats and you go into this cave system, and they have all of these exhibits that show all of the skeletons and what have you that have been removed, and then the various dates. And the most interesting sign to me in the museum, there's also a museum, is this one. It says Homo sapiens are the earliest modern human, at least 70,000 years ago. Humans, oh wait, that's not the, okay, sorry. The quote I wanted to say was, it talks about Homo sapiens, how they emerged 70,000 years ago, but it also says, we've also endangered our survival on Earth by polluting the atmosphere, destroying natural habitats, and waging war. And then the last statement is a question. Will the ingenuity that has helped us thus far eventually destroy us or ensure our survival long into the future? So I thought that was pretty heady. Okay, so after the trip ended, my wife, of course, being the photographer she is, created this travel book, this memory book, and you can do that. There's various services on the web where you can produce your own books and then print them up. And this was every time we go on a trip, she makes a book because she likes to have her photos in a book. And here's just an example of the pages and what she puts in it. So yeah, so pretty cool. Any questions? So here's some, I'll just show you some quick photos. Here's downtown Cape Town. Here's some interesting architecture. It's kind of a mix of New Orleans and Dutch. Of course, you know, the Dutch and the English and the Portuguese all have ties to the country. Here's another outdoor market in downtown Cape Town. So just outside downtown Cape Town, there's this place called Hop Bay, and there they had another market that was similar to the old biscuit mill, where you have many food vendors and artisans selling their wares. And this was a lot of fun because they had a lot of beer makers there selling their liquid, and but some interesting food choices. Here's ostrich pie, and yes, there's ostrich that's in there. Scotch egg, chicken pie, so on and so forth. Interesting foods. If you want to try some South African cuisine, there is a restaurant on Miramar Boulevard. And I can't remember the name of it, but if you do Yelp and just type in South African cuisine, it'll give you the name of it. It's called, I think, Little Bunny. My wife and I went there last week, and it was pretty good. Okay, so here's a picture of Table Mountain, and as Jeanette said, You want to be flexible on the day you visit, because if it is foggy or overcast, it's not worth going. And when we first got there, we couldn't go because of the weather. So it took us a couple days until the weather cleared, but it's certainly worth, and this is not the best picture. I should have chosen a better one. But now throughout South Africa, you've got these little creatures. They're called dassies, and they're very docile. When we were in Mosel Bay, I went out to sit on a rock to look at the ocean, and I sat down and I realized there was a Dossie right next to me that I didn't even see because it was so well camouflaged with the rocks. And he could care less that I was there. He just looked at me and I looked at him, and you know, we left each other alone, but we checked each other out. So pretty cool.
You know what
Dossies
their closest living relatives are?
is the elephant, right?
Yep.
Is that right? Okay.
Yep.
It is right. Okay. That's
Yep.
what I thought. The elephant, yeah, believe it or not. And they're maybe this big. What's interesting is you don't see them at the San Diego Zoo. I'm not sure why. Maybe because the numbers are so.
We do have them. They're known by rock hyrax.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
That's right. Rock hyrax. Right. They
Yep.
have them at the zoo. Right. Okay. I know exactly where they are. Okay. All right. So here's a better picture of Table Mountain, and hence why they gave it that name. This was taken from Robben Island. This is the view that you get. And by the way, if you go to Robben Island, you can take a ferry out there. You might see whales. We saw some they weren't southern right whales. I think they were pilot whales, but the boat stopped a couple times so the passengers on the boat could observe them. It was pretty neat. Here's another shot. This is further down the garden route. Here's another picture of the penguins at the African penguins at Boulders Beach. And of course, you got to go see the Cape of Good Hope. That's an amazing spot. Lots of interesting geography. There's a lighthouse you can walk up to, and lots of good photo opportunities. Here's some shots from Kruger. This one of the giraffe, we actually went on a walking safari. And when you go on a walking safari in Kruger, you have to go with guides, and the guides have rifles with them to protect you. I asked one of our guides, his name was Hope. I said, well, what happens if you actually have to use a rifle? And he goes, if I kill an animal, I lose my job. I'm like, holy mackerel, that doesn't sound very good. Okay, so another picture of, this is on the other side of Cape Town. These are called, I think, the Seven Sisters, these mountain peaks here. This is a beautiful spot if you wanted to stay there for a couple nights. There's some more animals, hippos in Kruger, and this is the blue vervet monkey, and they do have these at the San Diego Zoo. One day when we were in Kruger, my wife and I stopped at a little, like a rest stop to buy some snacks, and she bought a chocolate bar, and this monkey with her baby jumped on my wife to steal her chocolate. And you never want to take chocolate away from my wife. So my wife slapped the monkey, and the monkey fell off her, and everything was fine. So anyway, if you've got food out there, be careful. Okay, and here's just a picture. This was from the Apartheid Museum, a big banner to honor Nelson Mandela. And lastly, some antelope, and probably the most dangerous animal that's responsible for most killings in Africa is the water buffalo. Okay, so that's my quick slideshow. Questions?
If you don't mind me adding,
No,
I'm
not at all.
very excited talking about Africa. I am lazier, so we have used a travel company called rhinoafrica.com.
Okay.
And they bill themselves as a luxury travel safari company, but I would take that word loosely. You can tell them kind of what your budget is and what you get a lot for your money. But they, on our trip last year, we told them when we landed and when we were leaving, and they did everything. They planned everything for us. We'd said what we wanted to see. We visited the Sabi Sands, which is a private game reserve next door to Kruger. The animals can go back and forth. So
Wow.
that's another option. We were not up for driving ourselves.
Yeah.
And so that's another option to consider if you
Okay.
if you're planning a trip.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else have anything to share if you've been to South Africa? Okay. We do have South Africans in San Diego. We have some of my neighbors are South Africans. So if you have a neighbor or someone who knows someone from that country, have a chat with them. Any other
I
questions?
see that Jim and Sandy Levin posted Bunny Chow, the restaurant you mentioned.
Bunny Chow,
in the
that's
chat.
it. Thank you. Oh, Jim. Oh, hi, Jim. How are you?
Hey, Matt.
How are you? Good. Good to see you. Thanks for coming. I hope this was useful to you.
Nice
Yeah.
pictures. Yeah.
So yeah, so Jim and Sandy are docents at Torrey Pine, so that's how I know them as well. So great. Other questions? Maybe I should look at the chat. I have it. How come it's not showing up? Oh, there it is.
For our RA members, we do a Let's Do Lunch series for the RA every year, and next year in May, so still a year away, but we'll be visiting Bunny Chow together, May of next year.
Oh, perfect.
So
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah. Yeah, the owner is South African. He was really, really nice. The food was excellent. It was reasonable. We really liked it. And there used to be another one that that's since closed down, but Bunny Chow is they still have one on. It's on Miramar, so not that far from where we live. So let's see. Questions. Irene slapping a monkey. Oh, Sabrina, you probably know my wife. Yeah. Bunny Chow. Yeah, best time to visit is in the we went in like I said, late November. But you want to do the opposite of summer here because you don't want to go during their summer, which is our winter, because it's gonna be really hot. Really, really hot. We did see whales. We talked about that. Yeah, it looks like we have all the questions in the chat answered. Anyone else?
Matt, quick question, and maybe
Yes.
Jenna can answer too. I know that in some parts of Europe, pickpocketing is a big thing. In South Africa, is that also a concern for travelers? Should people be concerned at all about that?
You should always, absolutely, when you travel anywhere, even in America, I always wear my wallet in my front pocket, in my right front pocket, instead of my back pocket. It's much harder for them to get it there. We did have money belts, but we didn't really use them. We didn't think we needed them. We've used them before in, say, Europe, which you would think is much safer. But we've never had, yeah. But you do want to keep your passport, of course, safe. You always want to know where that is and make sure it's in a safe spot that no one can find. Let's see, any stomach issues? No, we did not have any travel-related illnesses at all when we were there. And like I said, we took malaria pills, and there's various types of malaria pills that you can get. Just check with your doctor on what they think is most appropriate for you.
We took Z-Pak.
Z-Pak? Oh, right, yeah.
Antibiotic and antidiarrheal we got from the travel clinic.
Yeah.
And they just gave them to us as a preventative thing. My son had stomach issues, so he was very grateful to have that.
Okay.
We just
Good.
put them in our suitcase just in case.
It's always good to travel with a little bit more than you need on the medicine side because you just never know. You never know what will happen. You hope for the best, but plan for the worst. Other questions? None? Okay. Let's see if anything's going on.
Well, thank you so much, Matt. I think we all learned a lot, and maybe if you go again to South Africa, you can let us know if anything's changed, or what else you should look for.
Yeah, I'll definitely go back at some point. There's other places I want to see first, but South Africa is just, it's beautiful. The people are wonderful. They really are. There was one story I did want to tell about my daughter. So during the student unrest, her finals kept getting postponed because of the universities were closing down, and students couldn't take their finals. So they finally scheduled her last one in this huge gym with like 8 other classes. And as they were taking their exam, protesters broke into the gym. They threw smoke bombs, and it took about a half an hour to 45 minutes for the police to come in and clear them out. And the police, of course, had riot gear and submachine guns. And a lot of the kids were crying because they were stressed out and had anxiety. And so when it was cleared out, uh, the proctor stood up and said, "You will now finish your exams." He goes, "You have no choice." And so my daughter was like, "Well, I guess I'll just have to get through it. It is what it is." And she stuck. She was able to finish, and it turned out when she got back to UCSD, she talked to her provost, and the provost said, "You could claim an A for that class because that was not a situation that you would have been expected to handle normally to take an exam that was interrupted by rioters." Anyway, good luck, everybody. If you plan to go, I hope you have a great time. It's all about the planning. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you so much. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye. Take care.